Hello everyone, welcome back to Unveiling Mythical Legends. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Hercules, the immortal hero of Greek mythology. From his divine bloodline to his long-standing battle with Hera, every detail is filled with dramatic twists and challenges. Did you know? During his childhood, Heracles faced countless trials and even displayed immense strength, successfully fending off an attack from poisonous snakes. So why was this hero able to defy fate and become a legendary figure? Today, we're going to unravel this epic tale. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell so you never miss more fascinating mythological stories. Heracles, one of the most famous heroes of ancient times, was born into a divine bloodline, with fate and mythology intertwining to make him an immortal legend in Western culture. He wasn't just the son of Zeus and Alcmene, but also the great-grandson of Perseus. Such a background destined him to possess a unique identity and extraordinary powers from birth. However, even such a powerful hero could not escape the tricks and challenges of fate. The story of Heracles was destined to be extraordinary from the moment of his birth. As an infant, Hera's jealousy followed him relentlessly, harboring a deep hatred for all of Zeus's favored ones. This manifestation of divine jealousy had a direct impact on Heracles' life. Alcmene, Heracles' mother, realized this and understood that Hera's wrath could bring endless disaster upon her child. Therefore, shortly after the baby was born, she entrusted him to a loyal servant, asking him to abandon Heracles in the wilderness, hoping that the protection of the gods would allow him to survive. To everyone's surprise, this tiny infant managed to survive in such dire circumstances, and an accidental encounter completely changed the course of his life. At the moment when Heracles was abandoned, fate played a part, and Athena and Hera happened to pass by that very field. Hearing the baby's cries, Athena felt pity and decided to pick him up. However, Heracles' innate strength caused him to bring pain to Athena, forcing her to put him down. This scene seemed to be an omen, foreshadowing that Heracles would become a hero with immense power, but also one who would be filled with controversy. However, this was not the end. His mother, Alcmene, eventually found him and decided to take him back. As Heracles grew, his divine bloodline and extraordinary strength began to manifest. Many began to recognize that this seemingly ordinary child would one day become an unbeatable hero. But, as with all heroes' stories, Heracles' life was not always smooth. Hera, dissatisfied with what she saw, could not tolerate the existence of this child. Her jealousy drove her to strike at Heracles once again. Shortly after his birth, Hera, the angry goddess, was unwilling to let him grow in peace, and sent two venomous snakes to attempt to take the life of this son of Zeus. That night, Heracles slept quietly in his cradle in Thebes, while the two snakes silently slithered into his room. They quietly moved to his cradle, preparing to strike this innocent baby with a fatal blow. However, Heracles was not paralyzed by fear. Instead, he felt a sense of unease even in his sleep. His hands did not tremble, but were filled with strength. When he sensed the presence of the snakes, he reached out without hesitation and grabbed one of the venomous snakes. At just a few months old, Heracles displayed extraordinary strength, using his small hands to squeeze and strangle the snake. The other snake met the same fate. Heracles showed no mercy and effortlessly dealt with it as well. This dramatic battle became the first heroic feat of his life. When his parents, Alcmene and Amphitryon, discovered the scene, they were amazed. They could not believe that this young infant possessed such incredible strength, even greater than many adult warriors. Heracles' heroic nature caught the attention of those around him, and people began to spread tales of this miraculous child's extraordinary abilities. Heracles' growth was filled with contradictions and challenges. As he grew older, his strength became more and more astonishing. Not only was he physically powerful, But whether it was driving a chariot, using a bow and arrow, or engaging in wrestling and boxing, Heracles excelled in all areas. His courage and natural talent destined him to become an exceptional hero, and his fame quickly spread throughout all of Greece. However, even such immense power could not suppress his inner temper, which deeply concerned his foster father, Amphitryon. Amphitryon knew that if Heracles did not learn to control his emotions, even with his immense potential, he would only drive himself towards the abyss of destruction. Therefore, he arranged for Heracles to study under several great teachers who could guide him in acquiring skills and knowledge. One of these teachers was Linus, a scholar who was highly skilled in music and literature, known for his strict teaching methods. Linus' severity often made Heracles feel impatient, but he still made an effort to learn, hoping to control his emotions and temper. However, young Heracles was still filled with countless bouts of anger and unease. During one lesson, Linus punished him for making a mistake. Linus struck Heracles' arm with his fist, and this action completely enraged the young hero. Heracles lost control in that moment, and his strength erupted suddenly. Without thinking, he swung the lyre he was holding and threw it at Linus. This strike, almost a reflexive reaction, killed Linus instantly. When Heracles realized what he had done, his heart was filled with regret. He could not understand why he had lost control at that moment, and this was a devastating blow to him. The event deeply scarred his soul, and he began to question whether he would ever be able to truly master his tremendous power. With the help of his foster father, Amphitryon, Heracles came to understand that controlling his inner rage and emotions would be the key to becoming the hero he was destined to be. This incident made Amphitryon realize that Heracles still had many challenges and dangers to face in his journey of growth. Therefore, he decided to send Heracles to the countryside to receive simpler and more natural education. There, Heracles' talents continued to shine, and his strength, courage, and beauty left everyone in awe. However, Heracles did not choose seclusion just because he was sent to the countryside. As he grew into a young man and realized his extraordinary powers, he decided to choose how to use his gifts. At this point, Heracles came to a quiet place in the forest, trying to find his direction in life. It was there that he encountered two women, one representing vice and the other representing virtue. The woman representing vice seduced Heracles with charming words, promising him a life filled with joy, indulgence, and luxury, all without any effort. In contrast, the woman representing virtue told Heracles that if he chose her path, he would face more difficulties and challenges without immediate pleasure, but in the end, he would be rewarded with a clear conscience and grow in the respect and love of others. Heracles listened patiently to the words of both women, and after careful consideration, he chose the path of virtue. This decision shaped his future fate. He no longer sought only personal pleasure but dedicated himself to a greater cause, honoring the gods and serving his country with self-sacrifice. However, Heracles did not become a hero merely because of his exceptional gifts. Every step of his accomplishments was filled with countless difficult choices and sacrifices. Upon returning to his home in the countryside, Heracles learned that the messenger of King Erginus of the Minions was heading to Thebes, demanding tribute of 100 cattle every year. This insult and coercion made Heracles furious, and without hesitation, he dealt with the messengers and sent their bodies back to their master. When King Erginus of the Minions heard the news that Heracles had slain his messengers, his anger reached its peak. The incident deeply offended his pride, and he decided that he could no longer endure such disrespect. He quickly assembled a massive army, preparing to march on Thebes and demanding Heracles' surrender. Erginus' forces were large and formidable, clearly intending to conquer Thebes and punish Heracles. However, King Creon of Thebes, filled with fear, believed that his city was powerless to withstand the impending assault. Faced with this formidable threat, he even considered submitting to urgent demands and handing Thebes over to the enemy. At this moment, Heracles and his foster father, Amphitryon, stepped forward, determined not to be intimidated by such a powerful enemy. They resolved to defend their homeland alongside the brave warriors of Thebes. Heracles knew the brutality of war, but he also understood that this struggle was not only to protect his home, but also to fight for the path he had chosen and to resist the fate that sought to control him. As Heracles stood alongside a group of courageous young warriors, the spirit of resistance in Thebes was ignited. In this life-or-death battle, Heracles demonstrated extraordinary combat skills and unmatched bravery. His immense strength and vast battle experience made him the central force on the battlefield. Heracles, along with the warriors of Thebes, launched a fierce counterattack against the Minion army. On the battlefield, Heracles fought like a fierce lion, fearless of any enemy and incredibly brave. His spear and javelin cut through the enemy ranks, and no soldier could stand against him. Ultimately, Heracles personally took to the front lines and faced King Erginus of the Minions. In an intense one-on-one duel, Heracles demonstrated his unmatched strength and skill, striking down the arrogant king. With Erginus' death, the morale of the Minion army shattered, and Thebes' victory became inevitable, with everything on the battlefield changing. However, the cost of war was not without its price. In the chaos of battle, Heracles' foster father, Amphitryon, tragically lost his life. This was a devastating blow to Heracles, but instead of succumbing to despair, he became even more determined to continue his fight. After his victory, Heracles decided to march on the Minion capital, or Cominus, where he successfully burned down the royal palace and plundered the entire city. Heracles' heroic actions sent shockwaves throughout the Greek world. His fearless spirit and extraordinary strength quickly earned him the admiration of the people. This hero was not only a warrior on the battlefield, but also a symbol of selflessness. He remained undaunted in battle, always standing firm in his belief in justice and never giving up, no matter the hardships or challenges he faced. For this reason, King Creon of Thebes was filled with immense gratitude toward Heracles. He even decided to honor the hero by giving his only daughter, Megara, to him in marriage. This was an extraordinary honor and the most sincere recognition of Heracles' indomitable spirit. But Heracles' achievements were far from over, as even the Olympian gods expressed their deep respect for him. These deities, who were typically distant and rarely honored mortals directly, could not ignore Heracles' bravery. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, gave Heracles a razor-sharp sword, symbolizing wisdom and speed. Phobos Apollo, the god of archery and music, gifted him a bundle of magical arrows that could accomplish anything on the battlefield, symbolizing Heracles' unmatched archery skills and foresight. Then there was Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship and fire, who bestowed upon him a golden quiver, representing strength and resilience. Finally, Athena, the goddess of strategy and wisdom, gifted him a sturdy leather tunic, not only a symbol of protection, but also a symbol of the wisdom and courage Heracles possessed. However, fate did not show mercy for Heracles' victories. Instead, it brought new challenges. Throughout his life, he could never escape the influence of his nemesis, Hera. Under Hera's shadow, Heracles' life once again descended into a series of great hardships. Reflecting on his pre-birth encounters, Hera had learned in the divine council that Heracles would become a threat to her, and she even interfered with his fate by influencing the destiny of his children. Her resentment towards him grew stronger, and she sought to make every step of Heracles' life difficult. She made Heracles' cousin, Eurystheus, born before Heracles, and as a result, Heracles was forced to become Eurystheus' servant. As Heracles' fame grew, Eurystheus became jealous and forced him to carry out a series of difficult tasks. These orders not only humiliated Heracles, but also caused him to feel disgusted and begin questioning his fate. Heracles briefly considered defying these unreasonable demands, but Zeus appeared before him and told him that if he completed the 10 tasks given by Eurystheus, his enslavement would come to an end. However, the fates did not stop there. Heracles' heart began to sink into confusion and pain, and the pressure weighed heavily on him, leading to extreme depression. Under Hera's influence, Heracles even went mad at one point, and in a fit of uncontrollable rage, he killed his own children. When Heracles regained his senses and realized the horrific thing he had done, his heart was filled with endless regret and agony. To escape from this heavy burden, he locked himself in a room, unwilling to interact with anyone. However, loneliness and seclusion did not offer Heracles true comfort. Instead, he knew that only through action could he lift the shadow hanging over him. So, he made a firm decision to start carrying out the tasks assigned by Eurystheus. Heracles once again took up his mission, embarking on a fearless journey. These tasks would become one of the greatest challenges of his life and serve as the path to his divine redemption. And that's the end of today's Heracles story. If you enjoyed this legendary hero's tale, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. What are your thoughts on Heracles' challenges and destiny? Leave a comment below and let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, as there will be more heroes and gods from Greek mythology waiting for you to discover. See you next time.